Something's not right. Oh, yeah. Hello fellow YouTube viewers, this is Nicholas, the editor of Sterling Knight Gamers. Now for this video, I am going to pitch what I would do to improve the Starship Troopers remake. For those of you who do not know, the Starship Troopers movie was based off of a book, but based is a pretty loose defined term since I've read the book and it is nothing like the movie. If anything, the origins of the movie dates back to when its screenplay was titled simply Bug Hunt. It was going to be a completely different movie of its own right. But what happened was Universal Studios bought the rights to the novel and realized they could recycle this script into a bare bones adaptation of the Starship Troopers novel. But in a way, that is the movie's biggest sin, is its association with Starship Troopers, since it is pretty bare bones to what the novel was like. Paul, I'm a big fan of the guy's work. I mean, the man made RoboCop and Total Recall, which are some of the best action flicks of the 20th century. But the thing is, this is a man who made a movie protesting corporate greed. This was not the right guy to make a movie where the military-industrial complex is played as a serious thing. But the movie did do some good things. For one thing, it developed the side characters named Carl, Dizzy, and Carmen. They barely had any characterization in the novel, but their roles were expanded here in the movie, so that part they did well. But for my remake, I am going to incorporate elements from the book, the movie, and from the Roughnecks cartoon series, which is a phenomenal show and I would highly recommend it. I just have to warn you, it does have a cliffhanger at the end that is most likely never going to be resolved, but it is still a fantastic TV show. Now for my vision of the Starship Troopers remake, I am going to mix it up a little. Because the thing is, I have read the book and I've researched the book, and I've read analysis of the book. And I will agree that I do not agree with a lot of the politics. If anything, Robert Hemingway admitted in an interview that Starship Troopers was a quick buck for him. And if anything, he used it as a means to express his political views, which were very pro-military. Since the man did use it to work for the army, but was unable to due to contracting tuberculosis. Now, due to the length of this video, I'm going to split it off into 3 sections. Simply because there is so much I have to say. Even though the Starship Troopers novel was roughly less than 300 pages, it still made this expansive world that I wanted to explore, but didn't get the chance to, at least not in his eyes. But through the movie and the cartoon series, this world developed into something more complete. And I in turn want to make an amalgamation of all the best qualities from previous adaptations. So, for part 1, I'm going to go over the overall tone, the setting, and the factions that are going to be featured. For part 2, I am going to talk about the power armor, the characters, and the plot. The third video is going to be the miscellaneous additions, but also franchising. What I'm going to do with sequels and video game tie-in. Overall tone. As I said before, I am going to mix in elements from both the book, the movie, and the Roughnecks cartoon. But in respect to Robert, there will be a theme focusing on the dangers of entitlement and selfishness, because there is legitimately good lessons from that. Now, it's going to be a simple coming-of-age story for the lead character, Johnny Rico. His beginnings as an undisciplined youth to his growth as a selfless, badass soldier, fighting for the good of his men, country, and for his species. Now, Johnny and the battles he goes through will be the main focus, but the world building is still going to be present, but a little bit more into the background, little hints. The film is going to be harsh, it's going to be brutal, and the soldiers are going to be in tight situations where they can never make a mistake. But don't worry, there is going to be levity, and if anything, levity is going to be a part of the narrative, as it's going to be shown that Johnny needs to be able to laugh at the abyss in order to retain his sanity. There's going to be a lot of comedy featured in this film. They're going to feature a lot of veterans trash talking one another. There's going to be a couple of guys giving badass one-liners as they decimate an entire legion of arachnids. Now, if he's available, I would ask Kevin Smith for the writing assistance, at least with the dialogue portions. Since the word Starship is in the title, this is going to be a setting that takes place in the future with plenty of technology porn. But I will still make it practical. I mean, come on guys. It's a movie where soldiers clad in sci-fi exo armor are fighting giant bugs in outer space. I say, let's embrace that absurdity and embrace its awesomeness. I will go full on out and make the movie 2.5 hours with a big enough budget available. I'm thinking maybe $200 million. That is if a studio is crazy enough to make that big of a risk. Now the setting, it's going to be in an indeterminate future where humanity has already began aggressively exploring the cosmos and colonizing the planets. And roughly 30 years ago, well, when this movie starts, humanity already made first contact with an already spacefaring alien race known simply as the Bugs. The Bugs see us humans as potential competition and want to exterminate us all before we become a threat. Sadly for them, we're already a pretty big threat. How the world came this way is of course going to be explained in the background. I will have it that the world already had a worldwide economic crash when unregulated corporate capitalism and corruption went to the brink. Crony capitalism, monopolies, outright human greed broke the world and sent it spiraling into chaos where man fought man for the simple necessities. Society was able to rebuild itself, but its scars were deep and it took several dozen years in order to fix the damage. But as such, it explains as to why in the Terran Federation, self-help ambition is considered taboo. Even the governments have established regulations to avoid monopolies and crony capitalism. Right, moving on to factions. In the book, the Terran Federation did come off as a merry utopia, a pro-military industrial complex society where nothing went wrong. Everybody who was a veteran was responsible, did not do any wrong, and there was never any crime. So in respect to Robert Hayway, I will present the Terran Federation as he intended, but I'm going to challenge it. Because the thing is, the Terran Federation has some qualities that are not that memorable, along with its memorable aspects. So I'm going to show both the good and the bad parts of the society that he describes and going to present challenges that he did not thought of. In my remake, I'm going to present the Terran Federation as a society that puts more emphasis on unity and community over self-help. This is a society where you are expected to always do right for fellow man and barely for yourself. The community is more important than you. Now, just like in the novel, there are two different types of residents. There are the civilians and the citizens. Civilians had the right to property, employment, and protest, but could not vote or run for office. Only citizens can. Now, civilians can become citizens after serving the state for 2 years, one of which is by volunteering in the mobile infantry. Now, because only veterans can be politicians in this society, I'm pretty sure that the Federation's leaders would only know war. And even though that they are veterans, that they have been trained to be responsible and disciplined, they are still human. They are not immune to pettiness or corruption. Now, the Terran Federation encompasses the Earth and the human colonies outside of Sol. Countries like America, Britain, India, and the United Nations, they still exist in this world, but they're treated more as territories than sovereign citizens, since the Terran Federation is basically become this one government order. But every country still has its rights of traditions. So don't worry, Christians, you can still celebrate Christmas. Now, capitalism does still exist in this world, but is much more regulated, and there is only one currency that is allowed in this entire society: credits. which will be based off of the Chinese yen. And of course, there is a tax system in this society that is universal to everyone, but it is fair and adjusts itself to net civilians' income. Now for the more darker aspects of the society. One major aspect of the Terran Federation when described in the novel is it got rid of crime by simply reinstating public capital punishment. If you've done something wrong to the state, they don't send you to jail, they whip your ass, with the amount of lashes depending on the severity of the crime. You're either whipped and or placed in a war camp where you can do community service. Only the worst criminals are detained or hung. Now, whipping is brutal, and there's a reason why we don't do that anymore in today's society, simply because it's barbaric. But in the novel, Robert Henry was at least trying to be fair when it came to the whipping. As described in the books, the whips that are used by the Terran Federation are designed to inflict as much pain as possible, but could not leave any incisions or bruises. And whenever someone is whipped by the state, there is always a doctor nearby to measure the vitals and provide medical treatment just to make sure that the victim does not die or is seriously hurt. But unfortunately, this is a society that focuses more on punishment than rehabilitation. Because the thing is, you can't simply whip someone in order for them to be a functional member of society. It takes much more than that. Some people oftentimes steal things or commit crimes out of desperation simply because they don't know of anything else. I am going to hint in the background that psychologists are often critical as to how the state handles the mentally ill, even some of them describing their treatment as 3 steps backwards. I mean, this is a society where everyone is expected to deal with their own problems, as this society tells its inhabitants that it is selfish to make others deal with your problems. There are some good qualities, since there is a lack of crime, there is a universal health care, and a fair tax system, but it is also one that does not want to help you. It only wants you to be in line. And now, the main bad guys of this movie. They are technically called Pseudo Arachnids. I'm going to make fun of how that even though they're called Pseudo Arachnids, no one really understands why, since they don't really have these arachnid-like characteristics. So everyone just simply calls them the bugs. Now these bugs, I'm going to portray them more as how they were in the Roughnecks TV show. They were numerous, they were dangerous, and were capable of space flights. So I guess you could say they're just like the Zerg. But don't worry, they're going to be able to stand out. What is the best phrase to describe the bugs? Well, the bugs have a habit of breaking the laws of nature. What makes the bugs such an dangerous foe is their ability of genetic manipulation. They can create a bug for any task at hand and make them completely docile. They have warriors. They have their servants. They have bugs that can fly through the vacuum of space. They can adapt to any situation, adapt to any enemy. There are going to be thousands of variations of bugs in this remake, and each one is going to be genetically modified for the planet they invade. All the bugs feature exo and endoskeletons. They have hard shells and bones in their bodies. They are extremely adaptive to all diseases, but they are susceptible to nerve gas and well-aimed shots at any of their nerve clusters. A well-placed hit can put them down instantly, but it's oftentimes very hard to find a nerve cluster. Now, all the bugs also have incredible senses. It can easily detect troopers from a mile away. So troopers, they don't bother with stealth. They know that they are instantly detected the moment they set a foot. I am also going to show this really horrible dark side to the bugs, particularly of what they do to their own. Now, the warrior and servant bugs in particular have the potential to be sentient beings, but their genetics have been drastically warped. They've essentially been lobotomized by their higher-ups to feel no pain, no fear, any self-worth, or even individualism. When they're separated from their higher-ups, they go feral. They've been crossbreeded to be as aggressive as possible. Without anything to follow them, they just turn on everything in sight, including their own. Now, these spacefaring bugs, you do not want them to invade your planet. The thing is, when the bugs invade a planet, they force the inhabitants into slave labor and mine out all the planet's resources, or they are made into food. Anybody who is left will have their genetic material integrated into the bugs. They take away everything from you. They take away your possessions, they take away your property, they take away your dignity, your life, your body. They will take away everything from you, and they do not care. All that they want is to expand. They want everything, and they crush anything and everything that is in their way. And as such, these bugs, by the time the movie starts, have already conquered dozens of worlds. Now, bugs that are this big and multiply in such huge quantities, of course, require a lot of nutrition and a lot of energy. They already have that covered. The bugs feed themselves with these sugar pellets, super condensed pills that contain all the nutrition and all the glucose that a bug needs to survive. But unfortunately, these pellets are made from the wildlife and citizens from the planets the bugs have conquered. It's Soylent Green, basically. Now, even though there are thousands of variations of bugs, there are these 5 main types that go out in the field. There are the warrior bugs, simple foot soldiers, the hoppers, airborne bugs that can fly even in low air pressure, water tigers, in case the bugs require battle underwater. There are the tank worms, which make tunnels for ambushes. And then there's the tanker bugs, giant, thick armored beetles that are the size of the house and can spew freaking organic napalm. These tankers, not only is their armor thick, they also have backup organs. So even if you get around right through their armor, it's not going to be enough. Now, the more higher up bugs are the queens, the brain bugs, and the transport bugs. Now, the queens alone can give birth to millions of bugs in a week. The brain bugs control everything, and the transport bugs can travel through space. These are the only 3 types of bugs that are allowed to have individuality. Now, one good aspect that came out of the Starship Troopers movies was the concept of the plasma bugs. Giant-sized beetles that can spew out plasma rounds from their rectums. Now, say what you want about how these things are released, but they're pretty damn effective. Even though that the plasma bugs lack aim, they can still destroy a starship even if it's in high orbit. The bugs are capable of traveling the cosmos with physics-breaking transport bugs. These things are freaking massive. Want to know how massive? 5 by 5 by 9 miles. They take up that much space, and they can carry millions of bugs from one planet to the other. What's amazing about these transport bugs, besides their size, is they can bend space around them, and they can manipulate gravity by interacting with dark matter and dark energy. And thing is, the Terran Federation scientists, they can't figure out how. But these massive organic beings bend time and space to their will. They can travel the cosmos faster than any human spaceship can. And they are heavily armored. A transport bug can basically shrug off a nuclear blast. Hell, a transport bug can wipe out an entire city off the face of the earth by just simply landing on it. But despite of how impressive the transport bug is, it does not have offensive capabilities. And in that aspect, humanity does have a huge leg on them. If humanity spots a transport bug entering our solar system, they can snipe it with mass accelerating cannon rounds, or MAC rounds. A single MAC round can basically take out a chunk of the moon. The Terran Federation can just aim, shoot, and shoot several more times until the transport bug bleeds out. Now, of course, space is extremely massive, so the solar system is methodically scanned to make sure that none of them get a foothold in any of the planets in our system. And because of that, even kids are encouraged to be involved in this war by simply taking a space telescope, searching the cosmos for any transport bug coming nearby, trying to destroy their home. Now, the entire bug race is ruled by the brain bugs. Now, the brain bugs are mentioned in the novel, but are not really developed very well, nor are they given much description as to what they look like. Only that they're big, they're bloated, and that's about it. The Starship Troopers movie did bring up a pretty interesting aspect, that these brain bugs have the capability to suck the brains out from living creatures. That is pretty good. What is not good is to make it look like a freaking vagina. I'm not making this up. They admitted in the commentary they based the model of the brain bug on a woman's taint. Can't stop thinking about that now can you? Of course, the Roughnecks TV show fixed this by making them look more intimidating and a little less silly, but they were still a big threat. Now for my remake, I would make the brain bugs a little bit Lovecraftian in nature. These things eat brains for knowledge and experience, and they're bloated from the gray matter and nerves they have consumed from other civilizations. And as such, they can barely move on their own. But it does not matter, because these things are far from a liability. A single brain bug is capable of coordinating an entire planet's worth of armies through psychic commands. A single brain bug can even communicate with other brain bugs on the other side of the universe by an organic form of quantum entanglement. But thankfully, though, the brain bugs have not learned how to perform psychological attacks on humans. They could just eat more brains to make themselves more compatible to our mind. And in a way, the bugs act like a machine, just going from planet to planet, not compromising, not negotiating, just taking everything that planet has to offer. Now, the third faction that's going to be featured in this movie are going to be the Skinnies. They weren't really given a proper name for their species, so I'm going to have it that their species name is unpronounceable to humans. Now, at first, the Skinnies fight with the bugs, but that's really more out of fear and enslavement, since the bugs have conquered their world. But they switch sides when they see that the mobile infantry is capable of defeating the bugs. They're not as advanced as the humans, but their technology is still advanced and just a bit unorthodox. Now, appearance-wise, I think that they look just fine in the Roughnecks TV show. The only major difference going to be is that they've evolved with vocal cords that have more variety in noises when compared to humans. They'll get more focus in the sequels than in the first movie. There's probably not going to be enough room. You can only put so much into 2.5 hours.